Alright, so we are here to talk about Pachamama, the planet, Mother Nature, and how, as a developers or as human beings, you should care about it. I consider myself as a political activist with a H because I'm a developer as well, as I will tell you in a second. My name is Manuel Carrasco Molina. On the internet, I go under Stuff. I'm StuffMC on Twitter. Blab.org is, so Blab means stays in German. It's my journalist activity following the environmental movements. I like to play around with Final Cut Pro and Logic Pro and try to do some hopefully good videos. I'm a French-speaking Spanish guy born in Belgium, which has been living in Germany for the last 18 years. I basically love Europe except for the way they treat refugees at the border. I'm not 24 years old, I wish, but I am a dinosaur in this environment of developers because I've been developer for 24 years, developing for the iPhone since 2008, but I like way more than nature, so this is why I'm pretty critical at Apple when it comes to environmental aspects. 10 years active with the Green Party, 4 years in the city council near a city that I will show you where there is a big coal pit called Kappen. We moved 3 years ago, we bought a new house, and so now I am since last year again involved in the city council, but this time also in the regional council, and I hope that my political career will go further on just for the sake of protecting the environment. I consider myself a climate activist and also refugees activist. I do this mix of politics, activism, journalism, free journalism, reporting on the field, being with the real activists, I would say, but I see myself as part of the global solution, being just hopefully a tiny part of it. 8 years without any meat. I wrote a book on Apress called Karma-Based API on Apple platforms. It's about building privacy into iOS and macOS apps. If you take a picture of this QR code and you will make a tweet that you like the book, even though you haven't read it yet. And I will pick the 3 first ones that are retweeting this thing, and all the others, I hope you can help me spread the good message about how privacy is an important thing. I gave talks about privacy also at different conferences. You can find it online. Let's look at the mass, as I call it. This is what we always refer as like the base point. Obviously, since we've industrialized, we've fixed a couple of problems. We have less poverty than we used to have. It also means that growth comes with a few problems. As you can see by this curve, it goes all the way to the top, and we are right now about 1.2 degrees. So this is why every time you hear 1.5 degrees, which is the goal, we have to reach it actually, because if we don't, we will be in a big mess, especially people in the global south. In this talk, I will play a couple of videos. The next one is from ITV News. Let's go into it and let's face the truth.
Scientists say that since 1970, temperatures have risen faster than in any other 50-year period over the past 2,000 years. They fear that a target of keeping warming below 1.5 degrees will now be breached within 20 years, unless there is immediate, rapid and large-scale reductions in greenhouse gas emissions.
So this is what we have to do together. Immediate, rapid and large-scale reductions. So as an industry, as developers, as CEOs or whatever, we can be responsible for large-scale reductions. The scale obviously depends if you are whatever, the CEO of Facebook, or if you have just an app which 3 people have downloaded, but it's every one of us can do something at this scale, and also every one of us can do something personally. So this is why this talk is also about not only about you as a developer, but also you as a human being. One of the things that I do since many years is I go with my camera, with a microphone and whatnot, all the gears that are necessary to produce those kind of videos. Some people that I know are going with drones, for example, and we follow the people that are doing basically civil disobedience. All right, so the video goes for another, like in total for 14 minutes, so check it out if you'd like. Basically they were fighting against the next problem, so to say, which is gas, and generally LNG, which is the liquid gas imported from the global south, from parts like Argentina, from Vaca Muerta, for example, where basically indigenous people are endangered. Another thing that is more like the current problem, but which is hopefully starting to be fixed and being phased out, is lignite. So it's brown coal, as we call it in German. It's a big chunk of Germany is filled with those holes, which I explain you a little bit on the right. And this is the biggest polluter in Germany, which is just a couple of kilometers away from where I live. And it produces every year as much CO2 as New Zealand. So as you can tell, so I'll show you in this map over there. If you go somewhere over there, it's very tiny, but if you look it up on Apple Maps, for example, this thing is actually where the image on the left is, and this other thing on over there, this huge thing is actually the coal pit. Is actually as big as Cologne itself, and you might recognize that over there it says Hambach Forest. So it's the forest which has been decimated for the last 40 years, and luckily all the activism together and a little bit of political work and whatnot could stop this madness. So this part you see is still there, but because there are lots of problems with water not being there where it should be, nobody knows if the trees will actually survive. All right, let's move on a little bit and speak about another way of activism. It's about moving to a plant-based food. I'll show you another small video, which is called In 20 to 30 Years. So it's a video from 5 years old. So that's why I call it In 25 Years, the world will be mostly vegan. So you could technically start today by at least reducing meat. I'm not asking anybody to start today to be a vegan. Myself, I was... It took me 2 years after my father was ill from cancer to start reading about it and understanding the problematics around cancer and what food has to do with it and whatnot. And then after 2 years of reducing meat, I became a pescatarian, which is basically only eating fish. And then after 3 months, I became a vegetarian. And for little under 3 years, and then I became a vegan 5 years ago.
Animal agriculture contributes 51% of total global greenhouse gas emissions. It's responsible for 91% of Amazon deforestation, and 1 to 2 new acres are cleared every second. 1/3 of all freshwater globally is used by the meat and dairy industry. A vegan can be fed on just 1/16 of an acre of land for a year. A meat eater needs 18 times that much land. Waste and pollution from animal farms are an environmental catastrophe.
This is why you can call us crazy and you can think like, oh no, I'm not going to stop on meat because this is so tasteful and whatever. The fact is that at one point or another, it won't be possible anymore to eat as much meat as we do for obvious ecological reasons. And if you think politics will solve the problem, it can in some ways. At my level, I'm trying to fix some stuff, but not only on in terms of food. I'm also trying to have less space for cars and more space for bikes, for example, at a more local level. Right now in Germany, the Greens with the socialists and the liberals are trying to bring Germany on the target of 1.5 degrees. We are trying to phase out coal by 2030 without making nuclear longer, because nuclear station power will be phased out next year in Germany. I'm happy to speak about thorium and all those kind of stuff, but I just think this is not the solution. And so in some ways it can, but if you think about the cups, we had 26 of this, and I just don't trust it. I don't trust it because, as Greta was mentioning, this is a lot of blah, blah, blah.
Build back better, blah, blah, blah. Green economy, blah, blah, blah. Net zero by 2050, blah, blah, blah. Net zero, blah, blah, blah. Climate neutral, blah, blah, blah. Our hopes and dreams drown in their empty words and promises. They've now had 30 years of blah, 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 and where has that led us? Over 50% of all our CO2 emissions have occurred since 1990, and a third since 2005. If this is what they consider to be climate action, then we don't want it. They invite cherry-picked young people to meetings like this to pretend that they are listening to us, but they are clearly not listening to us. And they never have. Just look at the numbers.
Look at the numbers, look at the facts. And most of those world leaders aren't listening to us. So one way to solve the problem is we will solve the problem. It takes some of us to go into politics, which is not always easy, believe me. The way I am pretty radical, so I have to do some compromises, which I don't really like a lot. But it takes of us to do some civil disobedience. To look, if it wasn't for the activists in the Hambach forest since 2012, we wouldn't be speaking about phasing out coal by 2030 in Germany. Actually, up until 3 years ago, the discussion was still 2045. So we were going to phase out coal in 2045, and let's try to fix this together. And speaking of problems, there is this tiny IT problem. It's like kind of the elephant in the room. You can imagine we are generating a lot of CO2. There are a lot of things to fix, and can we fix it together? So let's try to fix it together. I give you a few tips. One of it is a search engine. We search all day long, right? We go like, oh, how do I convert a SwiftUI font to an UI font? Oh yeah, go for it on Stack Overflow and you'll find out it's a terrible enum thingy. And then, oh, my Ruby version is not found, so my fast lane isn't working anymore. Or am I going to fix it? And how many engineers does it take to save the world? Well, I don't know. Probably not too many, but at the same time, a lot. So you get it, right? We are constantly looking it up. And when I'm saying searching, looking it up, you're probably thinking of a word in your mind. And this is my question to you. Are you still Googling?
You want to sell sugar water for the rest of your life? Or do you want to come with me and change the world?
Come with me and change the world and stop searching and start planting, right? Stop using Google, use Ecosia. Some of you might know them, ecosia.org. It's a German company which is being founded by this guy, Christian Kroll. As this German newspaper was saying, he prefers to plant trees instead of making millions. So what they do is you search the web with Ecosia, and by the way, they are based on Bing, so the algorithm is not too bad. And if by any means you don't find what you find over there, you just click on another link and then you go to Google just in case Google is better. They generate money with ads just like Google does or Bing does or whatever everybody does, but the difference is they do it with good ads. So by good I mean they will never put you an ad for like fossil fuels or for like flying from Hamburg to Berlin, for example, and they do some money out of it, and once they get the revenues, the pure revenues, 80% of it, they use it to plant trees with partners. So it means they pay their people, they pay their computers, they pay their servers or whatever, and the money they still have, they use 20% of it to make the company a little bit richer, so to say, so that the company can grow a little bit, but 80% of it, they just plant trees. Tune your code. And if you think, or if you thought that this talk was going to be only about this, then you were obviously wrong. I give a talk about this, at least at iOS Dev UK, but I think at other conferences as well, which is about optimizing your code. This is very specific in this case to basically Xcode and iOS, which is the tool in which you guys watching this video are commonly using. One thing you can do over there is you can use the gauges and see basically what's the load like. Are you using you see you're using 30% of location, so it means what are you doing all the time with location and whatnot, you know. Yeah, that's one thing. The other thing is related to that. If you go in your iPhone in settings battery, for example, this is basically where users go if the battery is draining, right? So you really don't want your app to be in this list because it's kind of like the losers list. At the same time, it also means that if you are over there, it means that your app is well used by the user, right? So to give you an example on those two screens, and the top app over there, which is Tagesschau, is from the first channel in Germany, from ARD. So I use it a lot, but what's interesting is that it's kind of weird that it has been draining 27% of my battery. What's even more weird is if I go to the next screen is you will see that it's actually it has actually actually been only used 18 minutes in total. So it's really not a lot. So I wonder what was wrong over there, right? And so you have to like have a look at this, and actually I hope that not only you as a developer, but you as a user look at over there, or in macOS you have the same thing. Look over there on the top bar, what kind of app is using your battery, and just report to the developer. Say to the developer what's wrong. And so yeah, that's one of the things you can do. The other thing you can do is run 100% renewable energy, whether it's your app infrastructure or your company or whatever. The best case is to have your own PVs, photovoltaic, like solar panels. That's what Ecosia do, by the way. They run all their business renewable, and they generate actually more than 100%. They generate, I think, 200% or something like that, or 250, whatever. And if it's not possible to have your own PVs, then rent from a 100% renewable energy provider, right? If you have to go from the grid. But please don't pick a mixed company. And by mixed company, I mean, like, for example, RWE in Germany, this big bad company which has been digging holes. Sure, they have green products, right? But yeah, that's not the idea behind it, right? Sure, you can probably order your vegan food from Amazon, but that's also not the idea behind it, right? Right. And so speaking about Apple goes neutral. We're carbon neutral. They go on their website. If you have a company, you should do something. But my point here is carbon neutral is great, Apple, but it's not enough. It's just not enough. You should be 200% renewable, and they should say, hey, we're carbon negative. And actually, Apple, just for you, I made you a badge that you can put in your website. Let's try to fix this all together, right? Right. Another thing, go vegan. Again. But I'm not specifically saying that to yourself, but I'm also more your company. Like, you don't have to become yourself vegan like from a day to the other, but what if as a company you would say during lunch, like Ecosia, you wouldn't have any of those products if you offer lunch. You could also, it's actually pretty easy, and it's actually better for the environment, but because fruits belongs to startup anyways, right? So you could, if you just have fruits and lots of fruits, people eat fruits, so they will eat less of the other stuff during the day. So that would be one thing. In your company, you could also go plastic and packaging free. Why not? In case you order pizza, for example, that's just one of the example. There is this website called order.green. I think it's only in German, but you get the idea. And they basically made this reusable packaging. If you want to have a vegan pizza, a lot of pizzeria, they don't have it. Just take the vegetarian pizza and ask them to not put any cheese. Offer breakfast at your company would be also a way to go kind of packaging free, because if you have cereals in 10-kilo packages, we buy at home, for example, a lot of our stuff, whether it's pasta or cereals in big 10-kilo packages. We're a big family of 6 people, so we try to generate less plastic. And please use ceramic cups, not plastic cups, and stop grabbing a coffee with something you have to throw away. If you want to grab your coffee in the morning, then have your own cup. Even if it's a plastic cup, obviously it can be, but the one you reuse all the time, right? And finally, go out to eat with the company, because when you go out at lunch, there is a big chance that you are actually producing less trash, right? Because all of those companies, like all of those restaurants, for example, they just wash their dishes, right? Also, we need more home office. It's less cost, right? But it's also less traffic. It's less CO2, so less people taking their cars or whatever. The downside is that each one is taking their own decision, for example, in electricity-wise. So you cannot really, even if your company has a green provider, you cannot be sure that the people that are working for you at home have their own green electricity. Write them an email and say, hey, we are happy to be 100% renewable at the company, but would you want to help us do the same thing at home? Maybe you can even strike a deal with some electricity company. I don't know, if you're a big company enough, you can have a rebate. The upside is that it's also way better work-life and family balance. I've been working myself remotely since many years, and really I don't know why I would want to go back to regularly, at least, to the office. My current company, to give you an example in terms of the cost, has an office. We are about to change the office, and the new office will have a room for 35 people. The thing is, until we move over there, we will be 70 people, right? So you're getting in. So it means that we will have a system where you have to kind of say register when you want to go to the office. If you absolutely have to go to the office, are you walking or are you biking, right? All right. You're not neither. But you're taking the train, right? You are taking the train. That's no. So, but worst case, you have an EV, right? Like an electrical vehicle, like battery powered. And my car is 100% based on renewable energies at home. I'm really happy to speak about EVs. I've been driving an EV since 3 years. Way better is to use the train, and way better is to use the bike, or if you can walk, it's even better. Try to reduce or quit flying. It's been 3 years. I'm fine with it. I haven't been flying anymore. I'm sure at one point in the future I will have to fly again for whatever reason, but I'm trying not to. Even when I was, for example, going to iOS Dev UK, which is in Wales, which was a long trip with the train, basically the whole day I took the train, and it was interesting. You see a lot of landscape, and so yeah, and you can work also longer. Online conferences are great, and otherwise, like I was telling you, just use the train. And please stop going for a company weekend in Mallorca if you are a German company or whatever. And generally, please stop like going because it's cheap. Don't go into this thing like, oh, it's cheap, so I'm going for 2 days trip in Mallorca, and over there I'm going to do some nature mountain biking. You know, it's ridiculous. Make an app that does good for the world, not just the next useless app. Be that CEO, the one that cares about the world. If you can start a company like Sono Motors, for example, they are working on a solar powered car, which will hopefully see the light of the day in 2023. Right now, the prototypes are there, and they started their company with the idea of not selling a car to every single person, but sharing the car with other people, for example. It's weird to start a car company to have way less car, but that's one of the goals they will most probably achieve. And it's a mess out there, so there are many problems to fix. Keep it small, and so you generate less CO2. Use the inspectors, like the networks inspectors, to see which part is bad. You will probably discover that there is like a 4 megabyte picture over there, which could be actually 600K. Do you really need that 100 megabyte video on the front page? Probably not. And also, please don't do autoplay. It's not only bad for the environment, it's also bad in terms of user experience, because I don't want to go on a website having a video played on my face. The iPhone, since the iPhone 10 has been using an OLED screen, we still don't have OLED on the iPads, and still no OLEDs on the Macs. So that's too bad. So really, you might notice, but a dark pixel on an OLED screen is actually not turned on, so it's sparing energy. Turn off your TV. Use a power switch. Automatic updates is the thing that I will show you now, which is that if you look over there, what you can see over there on the top. I turned off the automatic app updates and apps. For whatever reason, I have musics over there and books as well. So it means that every time that I will download a music on one device, it will download on the other one. I'm not sure how old the screenshot is, but definitely when I install an app on a device, it won't install on another device because this is not what I want. And also the updates, I know it's kind of weird, but one of the things that I like about doing the updates myself, besides the fact that I don't want to have to update some of the apps every 2 weeks, you know, there are a lot of apps out there, like Facebook for example, which are basically working in this sprint update thing. Like every 2 weeks they will release a new app, and so I don't necessarily need it. But the other thing is I realized a lot of time, oh, this app, you know, I haven't been using it forever, so I'm just going to delete it. Stop! Now I really have to stop. And this is why I'm really happy. I'm saying shukran here, which is thank you in Arabic. You can find me over there at StuffMC on Twitter. I'm on Instagram as well with StuffMCM, and this is my email if you want to get in touch with me. And now I am really more than happy to speak with some of you in the Q&As.